Well, the privilege is all mine. This is an astonishingly impressive audience, and not the sort one gets a shot at all the time. Mark Twain said the perfect audience, he described it as intelligent, informed, inquisitive, and drunk. Given the hour of the day, I think maybe we're only 3/4 there, but I know a lot of you, and I can vouch for the first three aspects. You know, audiences this erudite are sometimes interesting. A couple years back, I gave a talk to an audience of academically minded people, and an elderly lady came rushing up afterward and said, "Oh," she was very excited. She said, "Oh, Governor, I mean, I just enjoyed that so much. It was just superfluous." I said, "Well, thank you, ma'am. I do my best." And she said, "Will your remarks be publicly available? Will they be published?" And I laughed and said, "Oh, if they ever were, I'd probably be posthumously." She said, "I do hope that'll be soon." I'm so grateful to the organizers, to the commission, to all of you, though, for making time for this subject. You ought to come every year. There is no topic more important in good times or bad, season in, season out, than the one about which we're convened today. But for the reasons that Mike just gave, Teresa foreshadowed, probably not been a year in which this conversation was more important or had more potential, if it comes to something, to make a real material difference for all of our state. Needs no embellishment, no illustration to say that the educational attainment of the Indiana population, those who are adults today in the workforce today, is woefully short of what we need. Short of national norms, say nothing of international challenges and competition. We all know this. I have come to think of it increasingly, however, as not just a big problem or even our largest economic problem, but the single problem that could hold Indiana back as the rate limiter on what otherwise might be an era of real strong economic recovery, making up of lost ground nationally. I'm not going to subject you this morning, as a lot of audiences have been lately, to a slideshow. If I did, the first few would be some of my favorite maps in which, by every criterion, Indiana, and by every evaluator, Indiana is now seen as one of the best environments for business investment, job growth, anywhere in America. What those maps don't take into account, in most cases, however, is the subject about which we're met here today. And I honestly believe that, to state this in the affirmative way, that if we can make the kind of progress that you are, I know, determined to make in your own institutions and collectively, and if we can play catch-up ball in terms of the candle power and the education of the Indiana worker, really there's nothing to stop this state over the long term from returning to prominence, returning to leadership as a place of prosperity and opportunity. But this is the sine qua non in a world, in a knowledge economy. It's a cliche to say it, but the only point I want to make is we're checking the other boxes, or we're in process of doing that. Low cost of doing business and strong infrastructure and a reasonable regulatory framework, and on and on and on. We can check the other boxes, but only you can check this one. Only your institutions and the people who comprise them. So I want to offer this thought and I think it's great, by the way, that so many of our independent schools are here. It's a blessing for this state that history and our forefathers and mothers planted in Indiana so many fantastic schools. And per capita, pound for pound, we have more. It's a great asset to Indiana. We have more and a more diverse assortment of higher educational opportunities than a state our size, state of 6.3 or 4 million people ought to expect to have. So welcome. This comment is directed primarily to your public institution colleagues. I don't know how you look at your work. As I visit with you as individual leaders, trustees, sometimes faculty, clearly and appropriately, you see yourselves as advocates for a given institution. I hope you see yourself, or will come to see yourself, as having a duty that runs to the whole state. You are an officer of the state. Your paycheck is provided in part by your fellow citizens, and when you count the indirect part that comes through student aid, it's a significant piece. And we want you to love dear old alma mater, or the school that now employs you, of course. And a degree of competition, of course, is healthy in all human endeavor. But we need you to come together on days like this, and every other day for that matter, and think about the ways in which you owe an obligation to help this state check that last and most important box. Somebody said to me early on that I used the term system of higher education, and it was a faculty member from one of the schools in the room said, well, in Indiana we don't have a system of higher education. We have a collection of institutions. That was the beginning of wisdom for me. A learning process I'm still embarked on. But while maintaining the independence and the healthy competition among institutions, we are pointed in a direction, and I'm very supportive, completely supportive of the Commission in the work they've been doing in trying to move Indiana to a new posture and a new outlook about the education we will offer beyond secondary school. I speak here as an observer, as a recent parent, I guess I could say, of Indiana students, and as clearly an amateur in this subject. But I think it's reasonably accurate to say that the arrangement we seek is one in which there is a place for every student, but not that every student can go every place. And I think we're headed that way, but my goodness, we've got some ground to make up. I'm very encouraged by what I think I see beginning at some of the regional campuses of IU and Purdue, for instance. This is a subject I have to confess has always puzzled me. What exactly are they there for? What exactly is the definition or self-image of these schools? And but I very much like instinctively find value in the Commission's guidance, and I think, as I understand it, this is supported by our regional leadership to make these changes. No remediation. If the K-12 system, which is a bigger problem than this one, we'll work on trying to fix that, and until we do, that's what Ivy Tech's for, or some other opportunity. No two-year degrees. That's what Ivy Tech's for. The 10% limit, if that's what it is, on dormitory space, yes, as far as I'm concerned, you know, this state doesn't need and cannot afford 10 Bloomingtons and Lafayettes. And I understand, and it's admirable, the enthusiasm of local boosters, legislators, and others who get stars in their eyes about building some sort of a great edifice to restore this town or that town. That is not, in my judgment, what Indiana higher education is about. It's a nice byproduct, it's a happy consequence when it happens, but it's not the reason we do this, and we don't have the resources to do that. I was going to say so anyway. I didn't know if Nasser would be here, but I was just over in Richmond for the most recent time, just last week. And I know it's not the only such example, but it's the freshest one to me. What Nasser Pater, what you and your teammates, if I can call them that, at Ivy Tech are doing over at Richmond to try to bring these two sets of resources together in an integrated, more effective way is a great, great model, and I commend you for it, and please press on. Friend of mine who was a great governor, who was later Secretary of Education, Lamar Alexander, once said that he thought of a budget crunch as an opportunity to innovate. That's a pretty good rule. Anybody who's been through tough years in business knows that often it's in those circumstances you do things that you realize in your heart of hearts you should have done sooner, could have done a long time ago, didn't do them until you were pressed to. I hope that, I'm so thrilled that you're gathered on this subject of productivity today. This has cried out, in my opinion, for attention, or more attention, for a long time. I know a lot of good things have been happening, but clearly now more is needed. And I hope you will do those things that are not radical, but I see done less often in higher ed than in many other walks of life. I'm on campuses all the time. I like it. The best sets of questions I get are from students. I had a great visit to IPFW last week. But you walk around and you meet folks. I make it my business too, and we do a lot of things for ourselves that some other Hoosiers could do for us. In state government, we practice the policy that if you can find it in the yellow pages, maybe, just maybe, we shouldn't be doing it ourselves. You may have assets. You may have assets you don't even know about. This was certainly the case in state government. You may have assets that could be redeployed to some higher purpose or used by somebody else to a higher purpose, and you can take the resources from that and ease your current burden. So these things are meat and potatoes management, but all too easy, all too human in any situation that is protected and insulated in the way that higher education is to a degree, to let them wait for a time like now. I am very proud of what the Commission has done and the legislature has begun to support in terms of paying for performance in Indiana higher education. As far as I'm concerned, in case there's any doubt, the policy of the state on that is not paused, let alone reversed. It's full speed ahead. This is too partial. You know, where else in the world do we pay for work in progress the way we do in higher ed? Not many places. And again, to an amateur, once one grasps the current reality of the astonishingly low percentage of those who enter who complete. I think Mike made an excellent point. What a tremendously fertile opportunity lies in the lives of these people who at least had the motivation and to get to the starting line and to make some sort of a start at higher ed and then to leave it undone. What a tragedy, but also what an upside. And so I'm going to increasingly look and urge everyone else to look not at just dollars in, not at dollars per student, dollars per diploma, dollars per degree, dollars per completed product of a system. I mean, talking about productivity today, what is it we want you to produce? Students who have graduated, who are certified, who have a credential and the knowledge that we assume came with it. I hope that you'll think about and look at all sorts of other opportunities. I noticed that Rhode Island is about to pass a bill which will require each public institution to offer 3-year degrees. Always optional with the student, but every institution must offer them. Ball State does now, as I recall. Why not everyone? Why would we need a bill to do this? Sometimes, looking at the system and the incentives that were built into it, I'm not faulting the institutions for following incentives that the world has laid out for you. Get paid for how many people come in the door, not how many people go out. What are you likely to emphasize? Of course. But one could almost look at the system and conclude that what we're really trying to do is get as many people herded in as possible and keep them in there as long as we can, because we get paid every day they're there. No. We want you to get them in all right. We want to help. But we want them out as fast as they can, being productive themselves and addressing Indiana's greatest economic need, therefore greatest economic opportunity. So I hope that that'll be part of your discussion, if not today, then in the days ahead. You know, alternatives are growing. People have been forecasting big difficulties for higher ed for some time. Just the fact that it hasn't happened cataclysmically yet doesn't mean it won't. Ask GM. Now the nation's newspapers, that seems to be the analogy of choice, and it's a pretty telling one as far as I'm concerned. But there are a lot of operations out there, I keep tripping over them, and they're growing very fast, that offer students of different ages, including those who started and never completed, a chance to do so at their own pace, to do so on their own time, to do so from their own home, if that fits their life, and to do so less expensively. And we need to be better at that than these new competitors are. I'm very, very pleased that what I think I see, which is a flowering of new thought, creativity, willingness to question old, deeply entrenched ways around Indiana higher ed. Again, we are so fortunate to have all of you in the schools that aren't at this meeting. We have more to work with, more institutions, more human talent leading them and teaching in them than we ought have any right to expect. State like ours, state our size. So let's make the most of it. Let's make it as productive as it can be, and productive of the only product that really ultimately matters. And that is the human talent that is up to the job of leading Indiana to greater heights and a greater opportunity for every citizen of this state. Thank you for all you do, and I welcome your questions. Let me take, while you formulate one, I always find that first question comes slowly. Thanks to Lumina and the Commission, who have come together, and we've worked with them. I don't know if this has been announced yet or not, but the first Trustees Academy will occur on August the 30th. And I don't know if the forum's been selected yet or not, presumably here in Indianapolis somewhere. But open to trustees, I think, of any school, and it's aimed at this and other topics, but it's meant to be an opportunity for you to pursue your continuing education and improve your stewardship of the schools that you serve. So Teresa and Mike and the staff, I think, can give you more details later on in the day. Questions? I gave you all that extra time and there still wasn't one. Let me leave you with a story, an interesting story that I just tripped over. I didn't know, but there's a lot I don't know. Some of you may have, that there were, years ago, I guess nearly a century back, there were three brothers named Smith who served as university presidents all at the same time. One of them was named Brian Smith. He was the president of IU. At the very same time he was serving IU with great distinction, he had a brother serving as the president of MIT, and a third brother serving as the president of Washington State University named Sam. I met the president emeritus of Washington State, who told me that he had found in the papers of the former President Smith the most remarkable note from his brother Brian. Brian Smith wrote his brother Sam right after retiring from IU, and there had been a great big party to commemorate his retirement and his service. And Brian wrote, "If I had pushed this place the way I should have, the crowd would have been a lot smaller." Now that's a very good rule, no matter what your role is in life. You should seek to push this place, whether it's a business, a law firm, a state administration, or a university, to be the very best and the most productive it possibly can be. If you do that, the retirement party might be a little smaller, but the retirement will be a lot more gratifying. I hope you'll all embrace that thought as you continue the rest of the day. Thank you for coming and for the service you provide.